Alright, okay, so this is take 3 of me trying to film this video. The first 2 times I filmed it, I got really ranty. Hi everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Saajid, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my May-June wrap-up. As you can tell by the title of this video, May and June were not really good reading months for me. It was very lackluster. I only read 5 books in May and 0 books in June. So I will be talking about the 5 books that I read in May. But before I get to that, I wanted to kind of explain why these past 2 months have been really dismal for me. And I do want to say that I'm not centering myself in what's been going on because I have been relatively unaffected. But I've been taking it on and taking it in, and naturally my focus and my investment in reading has been quite minimal over the past couple of months. So May was Ramadan. Ramadan ended closer to the end of May. I ended up like in a huge life slump after that, and I don't know, like the last week of Ramadan just wasn't really good. I kind of like stopped praying like consistently throughout the week, and it just wasn't great. So like that kind of set the precedent for the next couple of weeks, and it didn't help that the world decided to go to shit after that. Not to say that it wasn't going to shit before, but you know what I mean. Like things started to escalate, people started to actually talk about things, protests everywhere. It's been a lot. So basically, after what happened in the States, a lot of things were triggered across the world. We were having a lot of conversations here in Trinidad. But most recently, something really awful happened. The police murdered 3 young black men from working class communities here in Trinidad, which triggered a bunch of protests. And you know, the protesters were completely justified in their anger against state violence. Like they were 100% in the right to protest and express their anger and frustration. Unfortunately, protests led to the death of a young woman who was killed by police, who was protesting, who was, you know, in her right. Her name was Onila Greaves, and she was killed by the TTPS through their own lack of foresight and carelessness. She was pregnant as well, and she was the mother of 4 or 5 children, and it's just absolutely devastating that this woman died, and it's so devastating that the 3 young men who were murdered had to be murdered as well. And it's just really frustrating, the kind of conversations that people have been having around this whole situation. You know, we've also been having a lot of stuff going on, like they're taking down the Columbus statues finally, and you know, after much protest and much advocacy, not even before this whole situation, right? People have been advocating to take these statues down, but a lot of people have been very defensive of the statues, saying, you know, why take them down? There's no reason to take them down. We should remember Columbus. We don't want to erase our history. And I mean, a lot of these things, a lot of these opinions are very indicative of the fact that people don't know their history. We don't have a good understanding or a good grasp of our history here in Trinidad. Like, we really don't. The general population, we don't. And when I say we, I mean me too. There's a lot that I still need to learn. There's a lot that I still, you know, have to read, right? But at the end of the day, I'm reading. I'm in the process of learning. I'm scratching the surface. I've done maybe a little bit more than scratch the surface at this point. But there are people out there who don't know that there's a surface to be scratched, and that's kind of the issue. I just feel like I wish we could just, you know, make history a compulsory subject like we do with maths and English. In fact, I would say, you know, yeet maths from the damn curriculum. We don't need to study maths as a compulsory subject. Why not study history as a compulsory subject instead? We're not like solving for X in our daily lives, but we are experiencing the repercussions of our history in our daily lives, right? So, I mean, I'm just going to leave resources in the description down below for you all to read up if you want to be more informed as to what's been going on in Trinidad, especially if you are Trinidadian, because I know that I have Trini viewers, as well as Trini viewers from other parts of the world living in the diaspora. So please keep yourself informed as to what's going on. I will link as much things as I can in the description. I was going to use this video as an opportunity to talk about what's been going on in the book community, but I feel like at this point everything has been said. So I'll link some videos from some of my Booktube friends who have made more insightful observations and comments about the book community during this whole conversation about Black Lives Matter than I ever could. I will link them down below. Go check them out and subscribe to their channels if you're interested in watching their content. Social media has been my downfall in many different ways, and when I say social media, I particularly mean Twitter. Now, I know when people complain about Twitter, they always talk about how it's a cesspool and people always have so much drama going on, and I'm like, well, what do you expect? Because Twitter is a space where people come to air what they're thinking and feeling, and it's a safe space for many people to do that. It's a safe space for me. I love Twitter. I love that it's a safe space for me. I love that I've made so many great connections on that platform. But you know what the problem with Twitter is for me? The problem was me. the way that I was using Twitter was just not good for my mental health. I, just every time there's drama, anything like that, I would just eat it all up, absorb it, and it would really stress me out. I would spend hours, even like a full day, focusing on things that are going on Twitter. Like, it's just not a healthy place for me. And I think for me right now, I'm in a phase of my life where I just don't have the self-control to be able to handle myself in a healthy way on Twitter. So I've been disconnecting, I've been deleting the app, I've been logging out, and none of these things work. I always find my way back onto twitter.com to say things and to retweet things and to read things and to absorb things. That kind of all culminated when some people were saying homophobic things about Arvin Ahmadi's book, saying that, it's not a real Muslim story because the character in the book is queer. And that really set me off, and I had like a whole rant about it, and it didn't achieve anything. I mean, people liked it, people did whatever, but it didn't achieve anything other than stress me out. Like, it just stressed me out. It triggered me. I got into it with this Booktuber. What's her name? Hanate. She made that video defending J.K. Rowling. And the thing about it is, it's like I kind of regret shading her on Twitter, because I mean, we didn't even fight. She just blocked me. So, I was shady to her. I think I called her irrelevant or something. And listen, I think what she said in her video was disgusting. I'm not here for that essentialist bullshit perspective on gender. It's gross. And excusing J.K. Rowling is gross. But what did I achieve by shading her on Twitter? Like, what did I achieve? Did I change her? Did I change her perspective? She just blocked me. I didn't achieve anything by being shady to her on Twitter. I mean, I'm not sorry. I don't regret expressing disdain towards her, but I just feel like, I don't handle myself on Twitter in a way that is healthy for me. I don't process information on Twitter in a way that is healthy for me. And I realize that the only way for me to really combat that is to just get my ass off of Twitter and go back on when I feel like if I'm in a place where I'm ready to be able to handle those things. So I deactivated my account, and it felt amazing. It felt like a purge, and it also felt sad because, again, I don't hate Twitter. I don't hate the people on Twitter. So it was devastating because that's where I made a connection with most of y'all. That's the platform where I really connected with most of you. I have a bunch of people who I'm only connected with on Twitter. So right now I'm basically severing those connections. Some connections that I'm not even realizing right now, right? Until like weeks, months down the line, I'll be like, oh wait, this person, I can't talk to them anymore because I'm not on Twitter. So I'm really, really sorry for removing my presence on Twitter. I was thinking to just let it be temporary. As you know, when you deactivate, you have a 30-day time period where you can reactivate, but after that 30-day time period, your account becomes permanently deleted. And I'm very much like 90% sure that I am ready to permanently delete my Twitter. At first it was just so that I could alleviate myself from some distractions, because last week I had a really, really stressful week. The last week of June was hella stressful. I had 30 papers to grade, and I have 4 assignments, collectively like 6,000 to 7,000 words to finish, and I did all of that within a week. I am exhausted, right? I am exhausted. That's also part of the reason why I didn't read a lot, because I had a lot of work to finish in a short amount of time. And I just knew that Twitter would have been too distracting for me, so I deactivated it, and I'm really happy. I feel so good that I'm now distanced from that, and I'm no longer in a place where I can be stressed out by that app, or where my habits of engaging with the app can stress me out. That's making me very happy. So I honestly feel like I'm going to permanently leave Twitter, at least for a while, and join back maybe in like a year, 2, 3, maybe never, but at some point later down the line. And hopefully at that point in my life, I could be in a better place mentally and in terms of my maturity, where I am able to engage with the app in a way that is not counterproductive to my own mental health, if that makes sense. I don't know if what I said makes sense, but I feel like it makes sense to me, and that's all that matters. Okay, alright, let's talk about the books that I read in May. So I read 2 graphic novels. I'll start off with this one here. This is Toko Anada Volume 1 by Yupe Chika. If you watched my media book freakout tag, you would know that I unfortunately did not like this book. I didn't. I was expecting to really like it. I didn't. It's about Satoko Anada from Japan and Saudi Arabia respectively. They both end up going to the States to study at university. They become each other's roommates, and it's about Satoko learning about Saudi Arabian culture and Islam and all that kind of stuff. It's very episodic, which I don't like. I'm not a fan of episodic stories. So each panel is like a different day or a different scenario where they're both learning about each other's culture, or where Satoko is learning about an aspect of Nada's culture. And it was just very Saudi Arabia 101, Islam 101, and I was like, I don't need to read this. It just didn't really feel like it contributed anything in my life. It didn't have much of a plot beyond them just learning about each other's culture. So I ended up giving this like 3 stars, but honestly that was just me being a bit charitable, because I know that this book means a lot to people. I know that some people do like the representation and whatnot, and generally I'm not a fan of graphic novels, so I mean I get why people like it, but I'm just also like, I was bored. I was heavily bored. The next graphic novel that I read was a book called American Born Chinese by Jin Luan Yang. This is a story about a boy who is an American born Chinese. He is trying to fit into his predominantly white high school, and is
check it out, sir. Richard Trim. Yes, sir, check it, mixed fresh, 3 pounds for 20. Check it out for the salmon. Check it out.
Nobody wanted damn fish. Anyway, so as I was saying, I read American Born Chinese by Jin Luan Yang. This book is about a boy who is trying to fit into his predominantly white school. He's a little bit ashamed of his heritage. There are 2 other plot lines of 2 completely different stories that don't even take place, or don't seemingly take place in the same reality as this main story. So you're wondering, well, what is the tie between the 3 of them? And then when you get to the end, they all tie together, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess. I really liked it. I like the overall message of the importance of being proud of who you are and not trying to alter yourself for other people. It was cute. It was a graphic novel, so but it was cute. It was definitely better than Satoko and Nada. The next book that I read was a middle grade book that was written in verse called Other Words for Home by Jasmine Waga, and this is a story about a girl named Jude who she and her mom are from Syria. They both end up having to leave Syria. Her mom is pregnant because of rising instability in their hometown, so they end up having to go live with her mother's brother in the States. But in doing so, they have to leave behind her dad and her older brother, so that's something that's kind of haunting her throughout the novel, and we're primarily focusing on her sort of fitting into this new American environment, and her reluctance to do so at the same time, because she left her country unwillingly. She didn't want to leave home, she didn't want to leave her brother, she didn't want to leave her dad, so it's about her just kind of dealing with all of that and the frustrations and the kind of trauma, I guess, that comes with that. I liked it. It was really a story about hope. It's a story about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I liked that. But I didn't really have any problems with it, other than the fact that it's written in verse, and I didn't really see the need for it to be written in verse. I don't think the verse did anything for the story. I didn't get the rhythm. I didn't get the vibe of the verse. When you read a Elizabeth Acevedo book, you're like, okay, you get the vibe, you get what she's doing. I didn't really get why this book needed to be written in verse. However, I also don't think that the verse took away anything from the story. I don't think that we would have gotten much more if it had been written in prose. So I mean, I guess it was good. I give it 4 stars. My next 4-star book was probably the best YA book that I read for the year, objectively speaking. And that was Felix Ever After by Case and Calendar. This book was so good. This book was good. It is a story about a boy named Felix who is trans, and he is dealing with the fact that somebody dead named him, as well as revealed pictures of him pre-transition, so he's dealing with that. He doesn't know who it is because it was an anonymous troll who did that to him, so he's trying to figure out who it is, and he has a good idea of who he thinks it is, and in investigating that person, he begins to realize that they might be innocent, and he also begins to realize that he might like them. What I liked about this book, though, is the way in which gender and sexuality was handled with such nuance. The characters in this book have relationships that blur the lines between romantic and friendship, and I like that it did that. It kind of explored that complexity, but it also explored the complexity of gender itself, because Felix is still questioning his gender. He definitely knows that he's trans. He knows that he's not the gender that was assigned to him at birth, but he isn't quite sure that the category of male or man or boy fits him. He's not sure if that category of that label is for him, so it's about him kind of trying to figure out a label that works for him, if there even is such a label. And I like that because it kind of shows that for a lot of trans people and genderqueer people, it isn't as simple as being man, woman, or non-binary. Like, there's a lot of in between, there's a lot of gray area, there's a lot of complexity that comes with questioning your gender, and negotiating the categories that exist for us to, you know, be a part of, even though we might feel like we belong in that categorical system. So I like that this book kind of did that, and I like that the book kind of explored that complexity. I really appreciated that about the story. Overall, it's just really great. This was my second book from Calendar. They are just incredible, and you'll need to read more of their books. And now on to the very last book, which was probably the best book that I read in May. It was amazing. I read this book whilst listening to the audiobook, and that book was A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. This book is excellent. It's amazing. It's better than your faves. Period. If you don't know, A Place for Us is a story about this family. The parents are Laila and Rafiq. They are Muslim immigrants from India, and their children are Hadia, Huda, and Amar. It's set in Southern California. We begin at the scene of Hadia's wedding, and her brother Amar comes to attend the wedding, and you learn very quickly that Amar has been estranged from the family for some time. And from there, we jump back in the past, and we have this really windy kind of story where we're going back and forth in the past, and we're really kind of building up to the wedding, and we keep going back to the wedding scene. And every time you go back to the wedding scene, you go back with more information and more insight as to like what the family's past is, because you get perspectives from them when they were kids, when they were like teenagers, when they were adults, and it's all very windy and random and jumping back and forth between time. There are flashbacks within flashbacks. It's very, very, very like web-like in terms of the way that it's told. It's very non-linear, and that's what I liked about it. I love stories that play with time in a clever way, and I think that this book definitely does that. It does a really good job of kind of showing how this family's context really impacts this particular wedding scene that we keep going back to, and you really feel the emotion that the characters are holding on their chests every time you go back to the wedding scene, because you're going back with new information, because you're going back having learned more about the relationship that Amar had with his family, particularly the tumultuous relationship that he had with his father. Another interesting thing about this book that people always like to point out is the fact that one of his sisters, Huda, the middle sister, we don't ever get her perspective, and I actually kind of like that. I think it was a really clever thing that the author did, because even though Huda is an important character, she has an impact and a purpose in the story. Unlike Hadia, unlike the mother and father, she hasn't had much of a part to play in what happened to Amar as the three of them do. But she's witnessed it, she's been there, she's had an impact in it, but she hasn't actually been a part of it. So her perspective wouldn't really add anything to the story. So I like that the author left her perspective out, but also kept the character there, because it kind of shows that it's more complicated. Like, family drama is more complicated than everybody having an equal part to play. So I liked what the author did with that. She also experimented with different like writing styles as well, and I really appreciated that. You'll understand it more when you actually go into the book. And as I said, I listened to the audiobook whilst reading along with the physical copy, and the narrators are they're spectacular. I love them. My favorite thing about this book though is faith. So the book deals with Islam heavily and how it has impacted these characters' lives, and it's just beautiful the way that faith is written about, the way that it's discussed. It's a Shia Muslim family as well, and even though the book doesn't center on like Shia oppression or anything like that, I think that that's actually what makes the story even better, is that it doesn't center that struggle, even though that is a valid struggle that should be written about and talked about. I like that the book just, you know, gave us an unapologetic Muslim family who are complex, who are flawed, and who so happen to be Shia Muslims. I really did appreciate that. I also appreciated Hadia's journey throughout her religion. She started wearing hijab at a young age, and then she took it off after 9/11, but then when things kind of calmed down and Huda started wearing back her hijab, Hadia decided that she didn't want to wear hijab anymore. And oftentimes when you see that hijab removal narrative in media, it's often like, you know, some oppressed Muslim girl needs some white boy named Jamie, and he needs to come and he needs to like rip her headscarf off and save her from her oppressive religion and her oppressive parents, and, you know, take her like skateboarding and surfing and to the movies. Oh my god, like, it's just really corny, and it's the same narrative we see over and over, and it really invalidates Muslim women who actually do take off their hijab and who do continue to participate in their religion and who take it off for reasons that are more complex than, oh my god, this white boy from down the street you know, took me to a concert and showed me life or something. You know, so I really appreciated that this book avoids that narrative and talking about the complexity of hijab and what it means to a main character. who was still very much a practicing Muslim even after she took off her hijab. So yeah, it was a great book. I gave it 5 stars. It was amazing. One of the best books that I read for the year. Please read it. And there you have it, y'all. Those are all of the books that I read over the past 2 months. Those are all of the thoughts that I have to share on what's been going on. Again, check out the description for links to more educational resources. If I could find more links to petitions and stuff like funds for stuff happening locally, I'll put it down there, but I will also still include like the regular Black Lives Matter links that for things that's been going on in the States. So there'll be links, there'll be educational resources. Please go read. There'll be links to the booktubers, as I mentioned. And yeah, so that's pretty much everything I have to say. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.